Hey everybody, Kevin Purcell with the Theotek Podcast, and we are joining you on a Friday morning if you are watching us live. For those of you who might see this a little bit later on, that's when we're going to be doing things probably from now on at 9 o'clock on Friday mornings, and I'm joined by my good buddies here. First of all, we have drinking coffee there, you see, Wes Allen. Wes, it's good to see you this morning, sir. How are you today?
Very good to be here. I'm doing very well, thank you.
All right. What's going on in the wonderful area of Philadelphia?
Yeah, the wonderful area of Philadelphia and the wonderful world of New Jersey. Uh, I just got done running tech for my denominational region's annual meeting, so that's all done. I think I've got my head back on straight. It was very nice. It's always interesting the day after worship. My church doesn't let me preach because they tried that once and it didn't work very well. And so it's always interesting to see like where my brain is at the next day. And I'm glad for the privilege of being given the morning off because that would not have been a good thing. But I'm here. I'll be semi-coherent.
Well, cool. Well, it looks like we just dropped off Antoine, and he'll hopefully be back with us fairly soon. He was having some interesting issues this morning as we were getting ready. But as soon as he jumps back on with us, then we will introduce him. One of our regulars was LaRosa Johnson, and because of time constraints, because he's out on the West Coast and all three of us are on the East Coast, and because of work schedules and things like that, LaRosa won't be joining us regularly. He may pop in every once in a while, he said, but we're sorry to see him go. He works with Olive Tree, and we'll hopefully still keep touch with him. And if they're doing anything exciting or interesting, maybe we could do a quick live, or not live, but taped interview and drop that in as we go forward. So hopefully we'll get Antoine back here. But let's go ahead, Wes, you and I, we'll just kind of jump in and get started. And I'm going to hand it over to you. Is there anything in our rundown of things that maybe we saw happen over the last couple of weeks that you find most interesting?
Well, I'll tell you the one that I'm looking most forward to, but I still haven't gotten any information on it. And I almost thought I would threaten them with making up rumors. Is Accordance has version 11 apparently coming out, and they're very proud of it. I've never seen them be this coy about releasing a software update. So this has got to be a big one. And if folks don't know, it was just, I guess, 2 days ago they put out on their website that the new Accordance 11 bundles are out. And no one had heard anything about Accordance 11. Like we knew it had to be coming because it's like clockwork yearly. But oh my gosh, it was absolutely amazing. And so now there you go. Now we're trying to figure out what on earth is going to be in this thing, and we've gotten all of one screenshot so far, and it's not even the whole screen. It's just the library, and apparently they've done something which people have been asking for years, is to break out the library into much more categories. Instead of just English tools and Greek tools and Hebrew tools, now you have commentaries and like a whole bunch more. And the weird thing is, Kevin, they don't have that screenshot on their website. I'll have to try to find it. So I'm kind of interested to see what's going on. I have not heard anything since that. Have you gotten any inkling from Accordance as to what actually is going on or when this is coming out?
No, I have not heard a single word. And we're showing you the announcement page on accordancebible.com. I'm not trying to brag or anything, but normally I will get, not a whole lot of lead time, but a week or two or to a month before they release, they'll, say, hey, come check out the beta. We know you might want to write about this for Christian Computing Magazine. And I haven't heard anything about that. So when you mentioned it, and then I saw something on their blog about the collections, I thought, oh, really? Okay, what's this? And then nothing. So I don't know what it is or what's going to happen. Could it just be that they're going to do a quick, small, tiny little update, but then have collections instead of making?
No, because they've always had kind of collections in their old bundles. I think they're trying to transition to new language.
Okay.
But the way they're hinting at this, it just seems like it's going to be rather big. And I know they've hinted in the past. They know that like user tools, that editor needs to be updated. And they've always held back because they don't want to break backwards compatibility. And they've done an admirable job to where you can use most modern accordance modules, if not all of them, even going back to using like a classic Mac OS emulator. So it's really kind of neat that they do that, but I think people have been waiting for a real long time to see these things updated, and I'm hoping that that's what this means, is that this is a really big update.
Well, here it says at the bottom of this page, it says, and soon as Accordance 11 is available in the coming days.
Yeah, so it's imminent.
Now, 1,472 days is days, so it could be 3 years away for all we know.
I don't think it's quite that long.
2 or 3 days, or 17 to 20 days, or 90 days. We don't, again, that's hard to tell. But when you see days, you sort of think, okay, this is imminent. This isn't going to be something way down the road.
And I wonder if it's being timed with the Yosemite release or something like that.
Well, there you go. That's a possibility. Maybe they want to wait on Apple to, to shoot their gun first, and then let it drop soon after that. Which Yosemite, for those who aren't Mac users or don't care about Mac use, Yosemite is their version of, Apple's operating system, and it's in beta. In fact, I'm using it right now, and then it's supposed to finally ship sometime this month here in October. Rumors say around...
The Gold Master's already been out. So for folks who don't know the language, Gold Master this is what's going to be released.
Right. So you're right. Yeah, this is interesting. Hopefully we'll see Accordance 11 sometime soon. I have Accordance mainly just because I've reviewed it. I got to be honest, it's not my day-to-day Bible study software, just because I have so much in Logos Bible software that's usually where I turn, because that's where most of my, really rich and quality materials are. Either Logos on Mac or Word Search and Logos on Windows. I don't like the Mac version of Word Search. So, well, Antoine, I saw jumped in and then he jumped right back out. I guess he just wanted us to see how pretty he was, and now we've had the touch of the Antoine, and maybe that'll be it for the morning. But
he's still making his coffee, is what's going on.
That's probably it, yeah. That loud whistling sound. All right. Well, look, when this comes and we finally get a look at it, we'll share it with you. That is, if we're able to share it with you once we get a look at it. Sometimes I get beta early and they say, don't talk about this. But that's not the case right now. I'd be a little more coy if it was, but anyway.
Yeah, I'll try to reach out with a couple of people I know at Accordance and see if I can get them to post any more screenshots or something over the next couple of days, because I've never seen them be this coy.
Yeah.
And they really are. I mean, just like little sliver screenshot, maybe when they first did their iOS release, but I get the feeling this is something big.
Well, along those lines, something I've kind of been talking about for the last few weeks has been actually a little bit longer than that, is the Pocket Bible version for Mac. Has finally come out. This was, interestingly, Luridian decided to do a Kickstarter campaign of this, and when they did the Kickstarter, they, asked customers, hey, who wants a Mac version? And I was one who said, yes, I'm in, because I've got sort of a special place in my heart for Pocket Bible, since it was the first mobile Bible software that I used, and so, I was excited to see it coming, and when it did, I finally got a copy of those of us who backed it got in on the beta, which, me, I love to be able to do that, and I'll share what it looks like now. It's in final release here, and it looks like Pocket Bible. You look at, if you're used to using this on Windows or on an iPad or an Android device, it's basic. Honestly, I like other programs. This isn't my go-to, so you're not going to see a lot of user content here. But along this side, you get the pane with all of your controls and navigation and that sort of thing, and then you see windows and dual pane. You can do layouts and show multiple different things. You can do 4 or 5 or 6. They have the tabs down here at the bottom. So I've got different books open on this pane. Like I'm trying to get it to respond. It seems slow. I think it's because I'm sharing the screen. It's normally very fast and nimble. Over here you get the English Standard Version Study Bible. Well, this is really
Kevin, I'm seeing a lot of like non-standard widgets or iOS 10 widgets that are colorized or something. Does this feel like a native Mac app, or does it feel like it's something that was ported and maybe is using something like a Wine compatibility layer?
It's definitely not Wine. It is native Mac, but they just they want it to look like Pocket Bible from every other platform, and so it looks similar to their other platforms. Craig Reardon is the developer. He's kind of I would say probably one of the fathers of Bible software, because one of the earliest Bible software packages that you could buy for Windows was the Quick Verse. If you're familiar with Quick Verse, I bought it. Yeah. I didn't buy it; it was given to me on 5 1/4-inch floppy disks. There were 6 of them, and I think I've shared this story before on here that if you searched for grace in the Bible, it'd say, please insert disc 1, and you'd insert disc 1, and then it would show you all the lists of the Genesis through Deuteronomy, say, that had the word in it, and then it'd say, please insert disc 2, and it would show you everything, Anyway, so that's how old it is, and so he's one.
Yeah, searching the Bible a 5 1/4-inch floppy at a time.
Yeah, and it was 6 of them, and at the time I thought, man, this is fast, because it was much faster than pulling out my big old, I had a huge NASB exhaustive concordance that was bigger than my head at the time. So anyway, this is I'm going to be honest, this isn't the most beautiful layout or program, but it's simple and it's quick. It's not acting quick.
How much does it cost?
Honestly, the engine, I think, is downloadable free, and then you just buy the books. So it's similar.
So very similar model to Olive Tree.
Right. Now I can show. I'll pull up. Let's see here. We'll go to Luridian and see what they say. I haven't bought a book on Luridian in forever. In fact, I don't even have.
Card in. That would be bad.
That's right there. Yeah, free download, Pocket Bible for Mac. All right,
nice.
And then you can buy. They do bundles like everybody else. They don't have as much in their arsenal as, say, Logos or Word Search or others, but they do have, the stuff you really want is there. It's not as great for original language study, although you can do some if you're well versed in it.
That was my next question. What is the original language support like, or it's just not as quite?
They've got they've got a version of the Bible in Hebrew and Greek, and I think they're the up-to-date recent ones. I don't know if I own them. I'll open up my Bibles. Let's see here. For example, here's the Greek New Testament SBL edition.
Okay, so it's not like the NA27, but
no, but I think that's available if you buy it. I just, I've got it in others, so I didn't bother to purchase it.
Do they do like grammatical tagging and that sort of thing?
Yes, there are hyperlinked things that you can click on them and it'll pop up with a window that gives you parsing and that sort of thing.
Cool.
So,
okay.
It's a decent program. It's not the best, but it's one of the cheaper ones, and one of the, as far as if you want to just open up a Bible and quickly search something, honestly, I've used it a lot for that. I also use Olive Tree for that because it's fast. If Logos isn't open or if Accordance isn't open, I don't open those. If all I want to do is find a verse real quick, because they're just so slow to open and it takes a while to get going. So anyway,
gotcha, okay.
That is it. And he's there.
Antoine's back. Is your coffee made?
Coffee's made. Router's reset. I'm learning something about routers and iOS devices.
What's
Okay,
that?
cool.
Well, I've ran into it at work, but I kind of forgot about it when I came home. But apparently iOS 8 has gotten a lot worse networking-wise. It's a little more of a resource hog. So previously, iOS devices didn't release themselves from your network until you reset the device and then left the presence of that particular router and then came back to it. Now it just flat out doesn't release at all.
Yeah, I found the networking in iOS 8 a little buggy. I'm hoping that 8.1 corrects some of those issues.
I am too, because at the moment now, I mean, I'm talking to you guys over the iPad right now. We kill 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 devices from using network resources and restart the router in order to release those network resources. And that's the third time this week since 8.02. I'm not happy.
What router is that? What router are you using?
It's a clear router, and if the router itself is also older, which is also
That
contributes
also
to
could
it.
be part of the issue, but okay.
Yeah.
But
That's
I have
definitely part
noticed
of
that
it.
iOS 8's networking is a little bit more buggy than I like.
It's
Anyway, back
just
to
stingy. But you guys are
Well,
talking about
Antoine, tell
Bible
us about
software.
you. We just got started. We did our intros here, and we talked a little bit about what's going on. So tell us, our pixelated friend, all about your what's going on in your life lately since we last met.
Oh my gosh, what isn't going on? Next Saturday of next week, I will be leaving for, sorry, not next Saturday, next Tuesday, 2 Tuesdays from now. I'll be leaving for the Netherlands to speak at Den Haag Telecom in the Netherlands. Pretty nice size technology, telecom, smartphones, smart cities event. And per my usual, my slide deck still isn't done. For that talk. I'll also be lead facilitator starting on the 7th, October the 7th, with the mobile ministry training course. We're going into our fall semester for that, and that's a 6-week course helping ministries better understand the impacts of mobile. And so I'll be one of the facilitators in session 3 and 4 for that course, weeks 3 and 4. So once I get finished my jet lag, I will be jumping. Which would be a lot of fun.
Antoine, is a mobile ministry forum coming up again? The thing that you had at WEC here around Philly a couple years ago?
Yeah, so the next mobile ministry forum is going to be April the 13th. Sorry, it's like the day after my birthday, in Needham in the Netherlands.
You going to the Netherlands? Okay, cool.
I hope so. I truly hope so. That would be really nice. Oh, and then also, all right, that says Nexus behind in the screen. I have, by virtue of falling off my bicycle, 2 Nexus 5 devices. I fell off my bicycle some weeks ago. There are those beautiful cracks.
Wow.
And LaRosa, who was also been featured here on our Theotek, had sold me his Nexus 5. And in the week and a quarter of owning it, the phone fell off my bicycle twice. The second time, it crushed the screen very, very well. And so I ended up buying another one on this website, Swappa, SWAPPA. And the person I bought it from through Android L on there, had Android L on there. So I've been getting a little bit of
running the beta of Android L. Okay,
life to come. Yeah, so I have 2 Nexus 5 devices, which is really weird for a guy who doesn't want to own a Nexus Android phone. But it's interesting. I got one running KitKat and the other running Android L, and you think you were looking at 2 different companies with the way the software is. It's really impressive what Google's doing to finally clean things up. It's not Apple-like, but it's closer. It's a more cohesive OS, Android L is, than previous versions by a country mile. It's really going to be like, for a lot of people, like having 2 different devices. So.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's my world so far. That and a cup of Joe.
And a cup of Joe. I have my French press. I'll get that out later. Kevin, I want to keep on the Bible software thing real quick because the other interesting news is Logos is changing their name. Well, their company name, I should say.
Logos Bible Software is no more.
Yeah, Faith Life.
Yeah, it's now called Faith Life, and I'll show you the sort of the news article that jumped out at us here. There's good old Bob Pritchett in all their glory above the Bellingham downtown from their local newspaper. This is interesting. I'm not surprised. They've been kind of talking a lot, using the Faith Life name with their Faith Life everything, Faith Life Bible Study, or what's it called, Faith Life Study Bible app and things like that. What do you make of this, Wes?
I'm wondering if they're going more for the idea that their brand is a lifestyle type of a brand instead of a scholarly pursuit. Obviously, they're still going to have the logos. I mean, the article says their logo software will still be out there, so that's going to be who they are. But it just seems like they're reaching for a much more broader audience than pastors or seminarians or scholars or things like that, which I think is probably a good move for them because I know a lot of folks who use the Logos or the Logos library for developing Bible studies or personal stuff or taking notes. I don't know a whole lot of people who are on the scholarly side of things who this is their first software package. So I think it's an interesting move for them. I think they're going to be able to market themselves much different to a wider Christian audience this way, and it'll be interesting to see what actually happens. What do you take from it?
Well, I want to hear what Antoine thinks. Share your thoughts, Antoine. You got any?
Well, I agree with Wes there. The appeal is going to be try to make it a little bit broader, a little less academic. Obviously, I do wonder, if that, and in seeing companies do this in the past, where they've had a major rebranding effort, they've changed, something that was so core. I wonder if at some point Logos would end up spinning out of Faith Life and, all of the life application, Bible publishing magazines and, anything that's not Logos and Biblia, could end up becoming their own organization in time. Or does Logos, kind of fade away? Does the idea of Bible as software fade away and Logos as a company kind of realizing that starts to move as Bible is lived and start putting products, in front of not just leaders, not just growing leaders, but, just communities as a whole. I wonder, you start thinking down those lines and it sounds really exciting for them. You've got Proclaim, is it, that they're using? I wonder, what other kind of collaborative community building software is going to come down the pipe from Faith Life, and how will that bend their approach as Bible is lived, not just Bible is taught.
I think that's interesting too. We're looking at the Faith Life Study Bible online right now. You guys both sort of touched on what I think is going on here. I think that they are trying to create a not just a Bible study platform, but an overall church and Christian lifestyle brand that includes, everybody's got a study Bible out. Well, they're the digital company, so they've got a digital study Bible. They've got serious Bible software, Logos or Logos, as they like to incorrectly label the term. Drives me nuts. I'm silly about stupid things like that. But and then you mentioned Proclaim, which is an interesting church presentation software that if you have your either Logos or Faith Life app open while your church service is going on and they're using Proclaim, you can use it to see the cues of the pastor's Bible passage that he's talking about, that kind of thing. They have some pretty backgrounds and stuff like that. Now I'll tell you this about Proclaim. Whoever designed the interface for building a presentation probably never did that in real life, because it's absolutely horrible to create a presentation in Proclaim. Once you get it up, it's awesome. Honestly, I think it's great. I can do it at home.
The screenshots look beautiful, yes.
It downloads at church. My volunteers can do their part of it at home. The music guy can do his part at home or in his office or anywhere you go. If you want to do something like that on Media Shout, you got to buy like a whole bunch of different license for it. They'll let you install it in 3 different places, but if you want 4, you're going to have to pay extra. So that's a cool thing about Proclaim. But actually building the here's their collaboration things that they talk about Proclaim. But anyway, I don't want to get off on that for too long. Yeah, I think that's what's going on here, and I think for the average user, they're not going to notice a difference.
And I think, Antoine, your point about them kind of moving away from core is, I honestly don't see them as moving away from their core. I see them as actually branding themselves as to how they've been functioning for over a decade. Because I don't see the company as a Bible software company, and I never have. And all the time that I've been using Bible software, I've always seen them as more of a digital library and Christian kind of lifestyle type company. And so I think they're actually moving towards their core. So I think this is going to be a good thing for them.
Do any of you have Logos 5 installed on your systems or anything like that? We could show. I don't have Logos 5 installed on mine right now, so I can't show it. I don't know if I would say that they're. I mean, I don't know if I agree with that. They're a Bible software company. That's their bread and butter. That's the money they make. That's where they. I think this is just a case of these are smart guys who are trying to build a business. This is a company with Christians in it. It's not a Christian company. I make that distinction very clearly. And so, they're a business. They're trying to find another way. What's another revenue channel? And
but Kevin,
we've got the teachers. Now we want to get the people in the pew.
But they've always been a company. They were the ones that had the huge library.
Right.
As opposed to like Bible Works, like they do Bible. And maybe they'll do something else. And Accordance kind of came kicking and screaming into adding commentaries and stuff. Olive Tree's always been kind of in the middle, but Logos, that was their big push, is we got everything. And when they meant they got everything, like their library had like the huge gambit of Christian publishing that you could get on the digital platform. And that's kind of how they branded their iOS app too. It's not a Bible study app. It's more of a book reader that can do Bible study.
No, that's not. I don't think that's true at all. The Logos Bible app on Android and iOS is definitely a Bible study app. It has the exegetical guide. It's got the I'm forgetting their term for it. I can pull it up on my phone here, but let's see here. They've got all the, or not all, but a lot of the passage guide. That's the term I was looking for. The passage guide, which goes and finds this passage in every book that you've got. The exegetical guide, the Bible word study guide. They've got the topic guide. They don't have the sermon starter guide yet. They have the text comparison tool. So yeah, and they've got their new mobile courses. So that's another thing that people don't talk a lot about, and that is that Logos has these mobile education courses, which are actually really good. They're intended to say, look, you can't afford to go pick up your family, move to seminary. You want to do it online, but you really can't afford Liberty's tuition or whatever, so buy our mobile course, get the information. You can tell people, hey, I took Logos mobile education courses, and here's a certificate. And as long as you're honest, I don't have a problem with you doing that with a church that doesn't accept or doesn't expect or require
Right.
education. In my opinion, if you follow it and go through it and are conscientious about it, when you're finished, you'll have just as good an education as you would get at, say, Liberty or Trinity Online Divinity Schools.
And let me back up a little bit, Kevin, because I got confused. They do have their Bible app, but they also have that Verso app, which is...
Yeah, the Verso app is a reader. That's it.
Right, okay.
Even
and that's where I got
advanced
confused.
Reader, but you're right. Antoine, you were going to say something? I guess not. Yeah, I think that's interesting. I don't want to beat this dead horse too long, but I think it's interesting. You're trying to say something, buddy, but we're
But like all of the Logos has been about educating faith community leaders, and moving the emphasis is shifting, much like it is with much of the church. The emphasis is shifting from just having leaders to having, and so if that's their focus, if they're going from faith for academics, faith for scholars, faith for faith leaders, to faith for the community, it's going to be a really good thing for them than what they had previously, and it should work out good. You can also see in that how some of the traditional facets of Logos life.
And he's frozen.
And I just think, what Anton was saying is how I've seen Logos for like 10 years.
I am not, am I?
You're back. Now you're frozen again. We're going to have a whole series of outtakes with Antoine, making coffee, eating his food, writing the thing. And so, yeah, I mean, I agree, but this is how I've perceived Logos for 10 years. Okay. Because as someone who was kind of doing Bible research from a pseudo-scholarly side, Logos wasn't even in the conversation.
Wow.
But for people who wanted to develop a wide library for personal study or for development of community or something, Logos was definitely in the conversation. I just always viewed the company differently.
Well, I would like to. I don't own anything in Logos. I don't. They don't pay me a dime for anything. I've bought everything I've got from them. So I don't. I don't want to make anybody think that I'm. That they've given me nothing as far as a lot of Bible software companies have given me their stuff to test and review, but I've never gotten anything from them. They don't do that for some reason. So I'm not trying to. I'm saying that to say, look, I don't have a vested interest in Logos Bible software, Logos. To me, yes, Accordance and BibleWorks are the two. Like, if you're a scholar, you're working on a PhD in, Greek or Hebrew or New Testament or something, that's probably where you need to go first. But I think Logos is number two, with those two as being the tied for first. I think Logos is just as good for scholarly, serious digital Bible study.
Yeah, and I'm not saying
I actually would put them up there with those other ones, because I would say if you want a library, it's even better than BibleWorks. BibleWorks, you're not going to get much of a library unless they have this quasi relationship with word search, but it was never really great using word search stuff with BibleWorks. So anyway.
And they deliberately said they didn't want to be a library, and that was always the interesting thing about BibleWorks.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned kicking and screaming. I think they opened the door to that partnership with word search. Kicking and screaming. I don't think they really wanted to do it. Well, let's move on. Antoine, what did you, in our rundown today, what jumps out at you as the most exciting or interesting news since the last time we met? By the way, it's been a few weeks.
Yeah, it has.
It has. It has. I've been reading a lot about, I want to say maybe half a decade, 6-7 years ago. I was really disappointed in how slow Western media, Western mobile tech media has been with what's been going on in terms of mobile payments. And I mean really slow. I mean, the things that have been happening in Japan for over a decade now with iMode and contactless payments with your phone, the economies that are happening in Finland and Estonia, places where, you know, you got folks on the docket, Canada, for example, who are aiming to get rid of cash before 20. I thought it was really slow on our end, on the side of, you know, the U.S. and side of how slow we're not doing mobile payments, more secure payments. We have a bit more about security and all of that stuff, but a lot less in payments. But in the last few weeks, you know, it's been really nice to see how Apple Pay has reignited that conversation, and how much more accepting different merchants are, and how not accepting other merchants are in regards to doing mobile payments. I really, really, really enjoy a lot of those articles and just some of the perspectives that are coming out. On the other side of that, you know, the Apple side of things, you know, you have Apple Watch. There was a really neat article, a watchmaker reviewist, Hoodinky, can't remember how to pronounce his name.
We're looking at that.
But he
right
made
now.
this, yeah, the one you have up there is a really good article on, you know, from a watchmaker's perspective of what Apple is doing in terms of making the Apple Watch. And so those
He had a
two
great section even
payments,
on the wristbands, which was really cool in that article.
yeah, I mean, and I'm not a watch guy by any means. I mean, I have my little activity tracker, my Polar Loop, and until this, I've despised anything that looks and acts like a watch. I had a Pebble for about a week, and got rid of it, you know. But I really do. I'm appreciating some of the perspectives about technology that are coming from outside of technology, and enjoying those discussions a little bit more than I'm listening to the tech world talk about what's impactful. You threw in the show notes, Kevin, you know, about Nokia and what does that, you know, not paying attention, article about Nokia not paying attention to the future or not presenting something right, and how that tripped up Nokia, and Apple and Google have taken advantage of it, and what might the church learn from it. I think in these two instances, you have Apple Pay, Google Wave, and this idea of paying mobile payments, and then the other side of that, you have technology as fashion, not just technology as tool. You know, I think those are two legs on which the church should really probably pay a little bit more attention to. Not necessarily that we should be designing, you know, faith tech smartwatches or anything like that, but that we should probably pay a little bit more attention to what's happening when technology kind of becomes invisible. It becomes magical in a sense, and it enables us to do some things that we couldn't do previously. You know, should your offering basket be an Apple Pay terminal instead of a basket? You know, for example. So those are the two things: Apple Watch, Apple Pay, and kind of the conversations around those that have really been really exciting commentary to go through over the past few weeks.
Wes?
Yeah, it's interesting with the Apple Pay, how people have jumped on it, and I'm kind of with Antoine. I hate having things on my arm, so I'm not particularly enthralled about getting an Apple Watch, although I've toyed with getting a Pebble just to see what it was like.
$99 Best Buy.
I know. I think that's the whole thing. It's like, wow, that might be fun. But what I've often said to the pastors I talk about with technology and using it in worship is that you have to make it disappear. If it doesn't disappear, you're not doing it right. And that's not to say there's no hiccups or anything like that. Like I've had projector bulbs blow up in the middle of worship, like literally explode. It was a lot of fun.
Wow.
And you know, we joke like we did a hot swap of a projector after the offering one time, to where like there was something going on and the projector died, and I sent somebody out to the other one to get an older projector, and we literally unhooked it, plugged it in, and set it up before the next song, and it went live right as we were about to sing the the next song, which I thought, and everybody laughed. So there's times where technology gets in the way, but you can laugh at it when it disappears for so much that you know that these people aren't just throwing gimmicks up on the screen or using it in worship.
So broadcast
and so
news
I think
comes to the church worship service. You remember that scene in broadcast news where they're running like crazy to get the tape in at just the right time?
Yeah. I forgot about that.
Here's Wes, and there's someone running through the hallways of the church with the projector and has to slide under.
And it was so funny because I literally am going, I don't need the projector, and my back of my head's going, I just want to see if I can do this. Like, that was the whole reason why I did it. And everybody laughed. It was fine. But I love that idea that technology is going to be disappearing, and it gets out of our way. And that's what I see the Apple Watch accomplishing, and that sort of thing. I like your term as like technology as fashion. And did you see the whole thing where the Apple Watch kind of showed up at the Paris fashion show, which was bizarre? Like, it's just all over the place. It's become a fashion symbol already. And you can, people will scoff at that, and Apple's just a fashion brander, but they understand something, I think, more than the engineering companies get. As far as Apple payments are going, I'm really fascinated because for years we have known that these little magnetic stripes on our cards are utterly and completely insecure. And we've seen Target last year and now Home Depot. And I don't know, Anton, you saw the article about all the restaurants that got snagged all up and down Bucks County.
JP Morgan Chase just got a big one, 76 million accounts.
So these things aren't secure. They really aren't. And it's really funny because as forgeable as checks are, they're more secure than these credit cards that we all depend on, which is interesting. And yet there's never been a conversation about moving to something different, because it's not a conspiracy theory. You don't have an impulse because these banks that are issuing all these nice magnetic strip cards are making gobs and 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 gobs of money. So they don't have an impulse to go forward, because even if they lose 76, what did you say? How many accounts? How many accounts did Chase just lose?
6 million accounts, JP Morgan Chase. Yeah.
We're compromised. But they're still making gobs of money, so they're like, well, whatever. And I think you're just now starting to get the public perception of going, no, this isn't good. And so you started to see the cracks a little bit at Target last year, to where Target sales went down for a couple of weeks, and that freaked them out. And now you have these new technologies that aren't really new; they're just new here, and they're beginning to get more acceptance. It's interesting to me, Antoine, on a whole lot of levels. The idea of having a digital device as being a necessity for an entry into society. That's part of what's coming out of it. When you move to using much less cash, how does a homeless person make a payment for a coffee unless you have a smartphone? And it's really interesting to me is like to me the smartphone revolution is great for people who are homeless, because it gives them things like a phone number to be contacted at, and a way to get email, and a way to send in resumes, and all this stuff. And it's interesting for me to go to talk to people from where I grew up from, and they hear about, homeless people have smartphones. This is awful. Why do they have these? And I have to take them aside and say, this is their connection to society. Like, you don't, right, because everything's online, and it actually is making things better for these folks. So please shut up about this. But it's interesting because they're not going to have the newest and the greatest of these smartphones. So how are they going to make a payment when, 5 years from now, 6 years from now, cash is kind of like, we don't, if you're paying with cash, you're automatically suspect. That might be 20 years from now. They're going to need these devices to have an entry into society. This is going to be their ID. This is going to be everything. And you're already seeing that Geico's got their insurance ID. So you're now, just with payments, you're living at the start of an entire revolution as to how you participate in society at large. And that's what I don't think people have picked up yet on with like Apple Pay and Google Wave and Google Wallet and all the whatever Google does. And I think that's going to be the interesting thing. And the other cool or weird thing is that these things are all decentralized. To say that there's no one that's running the whole show.
Well, the payments piece is quite centralized. That's an oligarchy. That's another conversation. But if you
but it's Google and Apple and
it's
PayPal
interesting. If you've been have you been paying attention to the protests going on in Hong Kong, the student strike and going on in Hong Kong?
Yeah.
One of the neatest things that has come out of that, because Hong Kong is a very technologically forward culture, they're still a couple years ahead of whatever we think is advanced, which is really nice. They are using an application by the folks over at the Guardian Project / Open Garden called FireChat, which is a decentralized chat service. It uses Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. It totally skips going through a centralized server. And not just FireChat, there are a few other decentralized applications that are being used. But literally, I talked with a young man yesterday whose family's from Hong Kong, and his family's involved in those protests. And he basically said that the way information is traveling, it's not going through a central anything. People are talking person to person, transferring money, transferring goods without going through a central anything, and it's changing the way that the student population of Hong Kong, it's changing the way that they're doing everyday life, not just because of these protests, but what they will do afterwards. They may not go back to WeChat, Google Chat, or iMessage, knowing that now they don't have to in order to talk to somebody who's also in their same circle. It's a different entry point into society, and one that, for lack of better terms, it is decentralized. It's not controlled, which could be good and a challenge.
Well, I think it's especially in China that the Beijing is freaking out a little bit. Just a tad.
They need to freak out. I mean, what they basically, if I'm the UK right now, I'm sitting here thinking, hey, wait a minute, we did our part. We gave you the land, now you got to put the elections out. Anyway.
But that's a whole cultural shift. But I mean, even here, Antoine along, was he looking for a DVD? Like even here, you now have Eric Holder calling on Apple and Google and the smartphone companies to leave backdoors in so that law enforcement can get into the encryption of phones. And it's the same exact thing. It's the idea of the powers that be are they're trying to control the communication of people, or they want a way to control it in case they feel they have a need to get in. And they always use if there's a pedophile, we want to be able to get on the phone, or if there's a terrorist plot, we want to be able to get into the encryption on the phone, and all these things. And it's always done in the name of public safety and public security, which you can understand the need for that.
You can understand it,
smokes,
but security theater, and to use that phrase, security theater, is really what people are. They're no longer hearing security; they're just hearing theater.
Yes,
they're only hearing and it's a slow change, it's a slow shift. And it's hitting everybody. And mobile has been a really interesting catalyst to what the internet started in that wise. And I think what we see, the fashion side of what we see with Apple Watch, is one thing. But like you said, that entry point into society, that I'm going to need this digital token in order to integrate in, and I need to now make the decision of who controls what that digital token is able to do, because it's not going to be the geeks, it's not going to be the tech elites, and it might not even be the financiers. It's going to be interesting. That's a really hard, and a good discussion.
Well, let's bring this back to our main topic, and that is technology for the church. And I think there's something interesting to be said here for privacy as it relates to government intrusion into the lives of people, and many evangelical Christians fear that the government is becoming more hostile towards our belief system, which may or may not be true. I don't necessarily want to have that discussion whether that is true or not, but let's just fast forward 30 years into the future and assume that might happen. And if it had, what does that look like for my children when they're my age? My son is 20 years old. He's preparing for the ministry. His calling is that God may be calling him to do ministry to the deaf. He is with a team of people traveling back from Long Island, New York, probably very close to where you guys live right now, based on their travel itinerary on their driving home today. And what's life going to be like in 30 years? Let's say the government, does get taken over by the anti-Christian society people. 1 John is fully true. There are already antichrists among you, and they become. I'm not saying the Antichrist as far as the end of time, the traditional view of Revelation. I'm talking about just suddenly now it's, if you're not kowtowing to the government and you're trying to be a proselytizing Christian, those evil, rotten people that we are, what do we do? And is something like a fire chat our salvation as well? How do we use? Are Christians doing enough to prepare for an eventual future that some say that's never going to happen, others say it's destined to happen. There's absolutely no doubt that it will happen in this country. Is that something that we need to be considerate of, or is it just kind of one of those things you take the laissez-faire, hey, God will take care of it, we'll be fine, don't worry about it? What do you think?
Go ahead, Antoine.
If you want to see what if 30 years, if we're going to say 30 years, you look at what the Middle East was like 10 years ago, because they're about 15, 20 years ahead of us, and the way faith movements have gone. If things continue, with the north and west movement of
He's frozen. Let him recover. That's what he knew.
Of the faith in the south and east.
Here he comes.
We could probably be a Saudi Arabia minus the oil.
Yeah, I actually think it's more likely that it'll be an atheistic. All those rotten Muslims, look what they do. Those rotten Christians, look what they do. And then you got the crazy Mormons and the Jehovah's Witnesses always knocking at my door. I'm sick of them. Let's just get rid of religion in general.
Yeah, the conversations like this trouble me. And I think part of the reason is we often start them with that hangover of us being a Christian country, which, coming from a Mennonite background, I don't even think is possible. But and kind of projecting 30 years about what these people do and those people do and oftentimes the way we enter into these conversations is with the very deeply felt fear or anxiety that we're losing societal power or control. And so I go into conversations like this with...
Can I stop you there for just 1 second? That's actually not my intended angle, because
I know.
I agree with you. We're not a Christian nation, that we maybe never have been. Yeah. I'm just saying, those of us who are Christians in this country, there's a fork I believe that we're standing at right now, and we could either go down the direction of, hey, look, we believe in freedom for all people, including Christians and homosexuals and atheists and intelligent design people and Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons that knock on your door and annoy you. All of these people have freedoms, and so we need to keep this freedom. It's precious. It's what makes us great as a nation. Or, the majority of people are sick and tired of you Christians, so would you please shut up and go back into your homes, and if you don't do so, we're going to force you in there. What if, I'm just asking, what if that's the fork that we take, and is the church going to be able to stand up to that? The movie that's coming out Left Behind, and I really recommend everybody go over to ChristianityToday.com and do their look at their movie review guide before you run out and watch the Christian movie Left Behind. There's a great review on that website about how it's definitely not a Christian movie. Anyway, the Left Behind series had all these Christians running around and they're using the internet, and of course it's on the internet, therefore it can never be shut down. Just ask people in China; they know. This. Are we?
Well, let me go back.
Technological area for that future if it happened.
I'm just trying to establish, like, this is why I get into fear and trepidation, because I think I've never read Left Behind. I have no desire to read Left Behind.
Oh, come on, they're great.
I'm not a dispensationalist, and this is not where my perspective on any of these things. So this is where I go into trepidation of this, because if anybody who reads, listens
all I heard was he's not a
dispensational.
I don't want to hear another word. No, I'm kidding. Go ahead, Wes.
But that's the idea. It's like, so this is the basis of the way these conversations come in, and if neighbors find out that I'm a pastor and they'll have heard something on Christian radio or they read Left Behind, and they'll talk about how Christians are going to be hunted down and killed, and I'm going, I don't know what to do with you. And so this is where I go in. My concern right now with privacy and everything is where you just talked about how freedom is something that we have to preserve for everyone. And I think that's where, if this country is going to be true to the ethos that it says it was founded on, and we've never done it perfectly, then that's something that we have to be very concerned about. Because I think what you're seeing in the movement now, and it kind of started in the 60s. A friend of mine once pointed out that if you look at a public government building in the 60s and you look at like how it's designed and all the windows are these little slits and stuff, because they were almost expecting there to be a general populist uprising then, coming out of things. And for now, with the internet age and the external threats of terrorism and all these other things that are going on, what I'm noticing in the actions of Eric Holder asking for technology companies to leave back doors in, for the NSA basically aggregating your entire life, is that our governments no longer seem to think they work for us. They seem to think that we are their enemies by default, or that we're potentially an enemy by default. And this alarms me greatly. And the fact that there's the only people that can do anything about it are kind of beholden to the whole system and are on the other side of the fence of where that control is going on, that alarms me. And where I listen to Christians sometimes talk about this stuff, or people who aren't Christians but they're middle class or middle upper class, and they talk about things in the assumption that it's all right that these things are going on because, well, their ideology is currently in control, and so we don't really worry about that all much. But I like what you said, is that we need to be very concerned, because the way our society exists is that we are constantly going through ideological thrusts, and if we're ever one on the out, we do not want powers that we would not want to use on somebody else. We wouldn't want them to be inflicted on us. Is it possible that this would happen? If you look at the history of the world, it's definitely possible that this would happen. And I think if it did, we Christians would have to take our lumps as being part of the people who helped create the situation in which this happened. The culture war metaphor that we've been fighting for decades and decades is very much born of it comes out of the idea of the person who controls the elements of power is the one who establishes the ideology and is able to force everybody else into line. Whether or not Christians actually wanted to do this is beside the point. We created the ethic in which this all happened. So I do think if it does ever happen, we've got our own level of repentance to do, because we helped create the world in which this became a possibility. And so looking forward, and again, for me, this is a terrifying thought to think of, if you take the NSA, what the NSA has been doing since the Patriot Act got passed, which was the worst thing that ever happened in the last decade, as far as legislation goes, and you extend that out to where government is not just kind of working on the assumption that we all could possibly be enemies, but that we actually are and must be controlled. To me, that's a terrifying prospect. Would technology at that point, like Fire Chat or what the students are doing in Hong Kong, be part of the way that we would continue to be able to converse? And if you're talking now, probably. If you're talking 30 years in the future, I honestly don't know if it would just be better to go dark. Because what you've already had back in the early 2000s, you had Microsoft with their trusted computing push with putting Palladium and only allowed to run apps that are signed, and there'd be a chip in the actual computer that would allow to do that. The power of control that gives to people, and I can't imagine a government completely hostile to its people when the technology advances to the point where you can just throw that into everything. And there's already been proposals to have that done. That technology becomes useful at that point for communication, because you have to assume everything's being eavesdropped on. Even something that's going to be in a mesh network. And so no, I honestly don't know. And to me, the whole idea is terrifying. To think of that happening, because if something like that happened, I think our perspective is wrong in that we think on the surface society would be the same, and it wouldn't be. I mean, you're talking much more of a Huxley's Brave New World reality than anything that we live in currently, and so that's kind of where I am thinking about this.
Listen, we're going to go ahead and give you the last word on that one, just because we're right at.
We're right at 10. Sorry.
And I want to kind of close.
You hit a hot button for me, Kevin.
And what's that?
You hit a hot button for me.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hit hot buttons. I'll leave your hot buttons alone from now on.
Don't touch my buttons.
No, I think it's interesting. That's probably really a better topic for another podcast. Dealing with church tech. I think Antoine's there trying to poke at us a little bit. What's going on, bud?
Stop picking my nose, Antoine.
I'm trying to touch this hot button.
Oh, okay.
Okay, cool.
I see that. All right. Well, real quick, give each of you maybe a minute or two to share what's hot on your mind as far as technology, and then we're going to close this thing out in about 5 minutes here. Antoine?
Sure. Like I said, I'll be going over to the Netherlands to talk about smart cities and mobile. Really looking forward to that talk in about a week and a half, 2 weeks time. That'll be a lot of fun. Be my first trip over to the Netherlands, and so looking forward to that. The other part of that trip that I'm actually looking forward to is the conversation around Apple Pay and wearable technology and where that's going to go, because a lot of that conference that I'll be going to, that's going to be a lot of that, the technology enabler side of that. The policy discussion, the ethics discussion, that'll certainly be part of it as well. But I'm looking forward to hearing really where the European mindset is towards all of this. The American mindset is unique, where we think differently than the rest of the world when it comes to a lot of this stuff. So it'd be really interesting to hear what Europe thinks about that. So I'll be looking forward to that. And then other than that, you'll just catch me on ARJWright and on Twitter or Mobile Ministry Magazine, because either of those places I will be chatting it up, drawing it up, or doing something really funky, pressing Wes's hot buttons like this.
All right. Reach out and touch someone. Wes.
Right now, as far as technology-wise goes, I am really looking forward just to the release of Yosemite. I want to see how the integration of the phone, the iPad, and the Mac device all go together. And I'm really fascinated for how they do that. I love what they did in their design of that, and I think it's going to be an interesting case study to examine that as opposed to Microsoft's version of this, which is just to have the same operating system everywhere with different types of interfaces. So I think you have two different mentalities about how to make these devices all integrate, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they do.
Well, I think that would be an interesting discussion maybe for next week. I always like to show you off what latest tech and toys that I am playing with. This is the
I need your job.
6 Plus, which is just a beautiful piece of hardware. It has replaced
It's too big.
H1 as my daily driver.
It's too big.
It is not too big. In fact, I wish that they would just make... I'm the guy who wished that they had just made the iPad mini a phone. That would have been my preference. But since they didn't, this is the next best thing, and so I'm very pleased with it. As it comes to, as it relates to Bible study, one of the awesome things is, look at that nice large screen. You can actually do... It's kind of hard with the...
Yeah, the backlight I can't see.
The backlight is just, killing it, so you're not going to be able to really... Maybe if I pull back, can you see it better that way? No, it's
turn the brightness down.
Anyway, well, we'll deal with it. As far as doing Bible study on that is a lot nicer than the old toy version of the iPhone, which is what I call the 3.5-inch and 4-inch versions. Those were
That's
great
built for
for
regular people.
And women. But those of us who are men want a big phone. So that's
No, those of us who are normal-sized men do not need a phone that is as big as an iPad mini.
Yeah,
all of you extra
Hey, Antoine.
large guys.
Antoine. Pressing the hot button.
Pressing the hot button. No,
So,
what's funny is now that I am using it, I always thought I had an iPhone. We have a family line, okay?
Uh-huh.
We got rid of our family phone about 2 years ago, and this allows me to carry an Android and an iOS device at once, okay? When you write about technology in your free time, that's a beneficial thing. And so for a long time I thought, man, this thing, my HTC, is huge, but now it feels diminutive compared to...
that's the HTC 4.7-inch?
4.7, I believe. Yeah, 5.
My interesting thing
anyway.
with this, Antoine, is that the 4.7-inch screen I think is what I would migrate to. But for me, if the 6 Plus could double as my tablet, that might make me bump up. And I've heard mixed reviews of kind of thinking of the iPhone 6 Plus as the iPad Micro, and most of the people that I've seen talk about it so far as folks who have thought they would get it to use it that way say it just the use case of this is so different than what you use an iPad for, that it's not as useful as kind of a micro tablet. It is it's a really good big phone, but you know how when you touch an iPad, even though the interface is the same, the experience is different. They say when you're using the phone, the iPad 6 Plus you feel like you're still using an iPhone, which is different. So Kevin, what's your inkling in that? Like you just said, Bible study is a lot more interesting in that. Like, so what's your experience with that?
Well, again, I'm a computer guy, so I'm going to do my inductive study portion of my sermon prep is going to be done on my laptop. That's just the way it's always going to be. I have an iPad, and I occasionally force myself to do that when I need to. I can do it now on this. It is possible. It's easier to do now than it once was. By the way, the HTC one's a 5-inch screen.
Oh, it's a 5-inch, okay.
And that's the M8 version. I just wrote an article for Gotta Be Mobile, which will come out over the weekend. So go to gottabemobile.com, GOTTABEMOBILE. Can the iPhone Plus replace an iPad Mini with Retina display? And my answer is for about 90% of what I was doing with an iPad mini, yes. The answer is yes, it can.
Okay.
Because it's bigger. I don't mind. I hated just doing general web surfing on my iPhone. I never did it. I always used the HTC One or my iPad. When I'm talking about being mobile.
Right.
I didn't enjoy taking pictures and then editing them on the phone, which is something as a photography enthusiast I enjoy doing. The phone, the camera phone on this phone is awesome. It's incredible, and it's big enough now to do some real quick editing before I post it. I almost never post just a naked picture. I don't mean that like that sounds bad now. I almost never post a
We're not going to go there. We're gonna start naming the podcast episodes, and this one is going to be named "I Almost Never Post Just a Naked Picture." That's the name of the title of the podcast. Take with it what you want. Look at Antoine's face. He's done.
Let me edit myself. I never post naked pictures of anyone, including me. Maybe my dog. I've posted naked pictures of my dog. That's the closest.
That's socially acceptable.
Did he
he's gone.
Leave? He's gone now.
Just start talking about how much you love bigger screens, because that's what real men use, and he'll come right back.
Bigger screens are better for naked pictures. I don't post any naked pictures. Here's what I would say.
Unedited. Naked means
pictures.
Unedited.
I almost never post unedited pictures of anything that I take. I like to, bump up the shadow, all that stuff. Crop it at least, if nothing else. I'm not a filters guy. I don't put lots of filters except on occasion or when I use Instagram because it's sort of expected there. But where was I going?
I was asking you about using.
Maybe I should just quit while I'm ahead. Thanks, guys.
Okay.
Time to go home.
All right. Look at it.
I broke his phone.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, you could.
You
made him throw it against the wall. Oh my goodness. Okay. Fun time. Thanks, guys.
This is a podcast by Christians for Christians.
We're Christians, and we do not post naked photos.
No. No, the point is, I was answering your question. Yes, I think that the iPhone 6 Plus can be an iPad mini replacement. It can never be an iPad replacement unless you just absolutely have to because you don't have the money for both. Get the iPhone 6 Plus. For those of you who don't like huge phones, yes, go with the 4.7-inch. It's probably going to be easier to carry, more enjoyable. It won't bend in your pocket quite as easily. That's just a bunch of big put-on silliness. Anybody who's my size doesn't need to be putting their phone in their back pocket, no matter what size the phone is. It's gonna bend. Anyway, but
yes, you think it can be?
Do
you think the aspect ratio, because it's 16:9, and that's my big knock on a lot of Google tablets, is I don't like productivity in a 16:9 screen, because especially when the onboard keyboard comes up, I can't see anything. But on the phone,
that's because Android tablets are designed for landscape view, and they're not. Android as a tablet interface is a landscape view. It's not. Yeah, I know, but portrait.
I'm a portrait guy.
When you're thinking productivity on a computer, is like productivity on a notepad, on a legal pad.
Mm-hmm.
So, you don't turn a legal pad to a landscape view in order to be productive with it. You have it in that portrait view.
But even on the 16:9, when you're flipping it on a bigger screen on the phone, it would be great. But like on those big, like a 10-inch tablet at 16:9, I mean, you even saw that with the first couple Surfaces. It was clunky feeling. But I think that's why Microsoft went to 3:2 for the new one. But on the phone, Kevin, you're saying that aspect ratio works pretty good.
It hadn't been an issue for me, so
cool.
It wasn't in the past, so it wasn't now. The only reason I didn't like when they said we're making a bigger phone, and all they really did was make it taller, it didn't effectively result in a bigger phone in that it wasn't wider, and therefore you couldn't get more done on it. It still looks small. Everything that looks small on the 3.5 looks small on the 4.0, but now it looks big, and so I'm very happy. Of course, I'm the guy who I had a Samsung Galaxy Note 3. I gave that to my son because the hardware just wasn't as good, I didn't think, as the hardware of the HTC One M8. But the 4.0 that's coming out soon, I'm not going to buy it, but I really would like to, but I'm not going to.
Cool. I'm glad that you have that, because you're the first person I talked to who's talked about that use case. So thanks.
Yeah, I have a friend who has a 4.7 inch, and I've held it, and I like it. I almost think I wish Apple had made it like a 5.2 or 5.3, but that's not a common screen size. It's 4.7, 5, and 5.5. They can buy those screens cheaper. If they had gone to like 5.2 or 5.3, they would have had to have a special made screen, and therefore it would have added to the cost of manufacturer, therefore less profit. And Apple's all about the profit, as we know. So
companies are all about the profit.
Well, that's true, but Apple to a greater degree than many. So
what I can't do? I have a picture of I have a few pictures of me holding my Nexus 5 against the iPhone 6, not the Plus. I can show those to you, but I can't do that inside of our conversation here because, well, Google didn't do that in the Hangouts iOS app.
That's silly. What's the comparison, Antoine?
It's the 6 is a little bit taller, a lot a bit thinner. The 6 feels like it was designed. The Nexus 5 feels like it was engineered.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. But everything Apple feels like it's been designed, almost sometimes to a fault. It almost sometimes they're more interested in the design than they are the function, which is why they've never put an SD card in an iPad. Or, of course, Google's getting away from that too. That's so stupid the way they have crippled SD cards in the most recent versions of Android. It's frustration. But
it's frustration.
It's different.
Well, listen, this has been the Theotek Podcast. We've had a really great time talking, and I noticed now that our viewers have dropped off precipitously in this last 20 minutes. So we will.
We had viewers?
We'll stick around. Yeah, we had some. Stick around for the. If you've stuck around in the recorded version of this, bless you, and get some help. The real thing is, though, we just want to say that we've discussed this. The three of us are going to try to do this on a weekly basis on Friday mornings like this. If you want to join us live, follow me on Google Plus, and I will post the link, and you can figure it out. Or you can just go to our YouTube, go to my YouTube, and you'll find it there after the fact. And all of us will be posting when that happens. And so if you're not free on Friday mornings, that's just when it's convenient for us to do it. And we may not get as many guests, or we may maybe we'll get more. I don't know. Maybe there's more guests that are free in the morning than used to be. We just didn't have any. But that's our hope going forward, that we'll be doing this on a weekly basis. And it may not last 90 minutes like it looks like it's going to today, but we've really enjoyed this. It's fun for us, and if you ever have anything interesting or exciting that you want us to talk about, please drop us a note. Just put a comment on this video or send me an email at kevin@kevinpurcell.org, and we'd love to hear from you. Follow us on Twitter at Theotek News, and follow me at KA Purcell. Wes is WESLO, is that right? Or WEZ?
WEZLO.
EZ, and Antoine's already shared his
ARJ Wright.
Cool. Thanks, Scott, and we are out.
Thank you.